Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's book to film adaptation. I'll be looking at No Exit by Taylor Adams. Now, the book was published in 2017 and it was adapted to screen in 2022. So I'll be looking at three things. I'll be looking at how good is the book, how good is the film, and how well does the film take from the book. So the film was released straight to Disney Plus, so that's where I watched it. And it was released sort of at the start of this year as well. So it never really got a cinema release, but it was one that I was sort of like keeping an eye out because I knew we'd bought the book, and so I knew it was coming. And it follows Darby, who is racing back home to see her mum before her mum dies of cancer. Is it cancer? Nope, brain aneurysm. Brain aneurysm in the film, cancer in the book. So she's trying to race home to see her mum before a brain aneurysm basically takes her mum. And she escapes from rehab, she steals a guy's car, she goes through, she gets stuck in the mountains, and then she discovers that there's a little girl who's been kidnapped and is tied up in the back of a van. And she's trying to figure out sort of like who is it that's included in the plot. And you've got your twists and your turns, and there's like who is it? And one of them's quite obvious straight away. You're like, no, it's got to be him. But then it kind of adds a few sort of curveballs in as well, which I thought was quite enjoyable. And I will be discussing the plot in its entirety a little bit later. So if you've not seen the film or not read the book and you don't want to know sort of like all the twists and turns, stop after the book recommendation and then always come back and have a look afterwards. Now, I probably would have enjoyed it if there was a bit more suspense and build up as to whose truck the little girl was stuck in. It did feel like she sees the little girl, she's then like, she goes back in and almost straight away she figures out whose truck it belongs to. And there's no sort of like suspense around that, and then it sort of builds from there. You know, I mean, I must admit, I'm still a little bit squeamish at points. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, no, I can watch everything through. And there were points as well, sort of like when she's getting attacked, or when, I mean, there's a scene where she gets a nail gun through the hand and her hand is stuck there and she's pulling her hand off the nail to escape. And that made me feel a little bit sick. I was like, oh, no, thank you. I don't really want to watch that. But, I mean, nail guns anyway, whenever you see anyone in a horror film or, you know, or thriller or anything without a nail gun, you know something bad's about to happen. I mean, it was a good film. It was good suspense. It had good twists and turns in it. You know, it had a good sort of build up. I did feel like it sort of, the build up was happening and then suddenly everything kind of happened, and then you kind of sat there going, huh. It's probably not one that I'm going to watch again, but I mean, it gets probably a 6 out of 10 from me. It was good, it had a good suspense, and I was watching it, and I wasn't bored, but I was kind of like, once I'd finished watching it, once it sort of ended, I was like, right, okay, so this happened, this happened, this happened, and I was like, right, okay. And I felt like, I don't know, like, some of the twists and turns I felt was unnecessary. But I felt the same with the book as well. So I read this book because of the film, because I wanted to do this book to film adaptation, and it's been getting rave reviews, and so I thought I'd give it a go. And this one follows Darby again, but this time she's on her way back to visit her mum who's got cancer, and she's not a druggie, and she's not coming out of rehab. In fact, the only drug that she's addicted to is energy drinks, which is a drug. It's energy drinks. And again, she gets stuck in this sort of like pit stop with these people, and she sees the kidnapped child, and it's a bit more gruesome in the book, I'm not gonna lie, than it is in the film. There are points as well in the book where I kind of had to put it down and walk away, because I was like, oh, I don't like, because sometimes if there's a lot of violence in a short period of time, I just feel uncomfortable, and I genuinely am like, I just need to take a break and just like, I don't know, like go and read like a children's story or something to make myself feel better, like cleanse my head. And I did feel a little bit let down by the ending as well, because I can't discuss the ending. I will discuss the ending when I do the book to film adaptation, when I go through the plot. But it felt like a bit of a cop-out. And again, the suspense was good. It was a good book, but I'm unlikely to read it again. And it probably gets a 6 out of 10 as well for the book. It was good, and it had a good pace to it, but then at times I was a bit like, I don't know. And again, I felt like some of the twists just weren't like sometimes it just wasn't needed. Like some of what happened, I felt like you just putting that in there to throw another sort of like spanner in the works. So now let's discuss sort of like the entirety of the plot. So obviously, as I said, they both start with Darby rushing off to see her mum, and they're both in a blizzard. But in the book, it's cancer. In the film, it's a brain aneurysm. In the book, she's a uni student. In the film, she's a drug addict. She's in rehab. So I'm not going to discuss the entire plot. I'm just going to discuss the main points. So the main points is there's you've got Ed and Ashley, okay, and then you've got Lars and Sandy. Now, Lars is the person whose van it is that the little girl is abducted in. Ashley turns out to be the foster brother of Lars. In the film, Sandy and Eddie are married. In the book, they're just cousins. Basically, it's a build-up of who has, you know, who's in charge of the child. So you find out it's Lars pretty early on. Then when she tries to sort of like come up with an escape plan and try to help the little girl escape, she confides in Ashley, and then it turns out Ashley is included in the plot. And so it goes sort of like a bit of back and forth with her trying to, you know, save the child, alert Sandy and Eddie that this is going on. She goes and escapes at one point, then she comes back in. And then it turns out that Sandy also knows the child, and Sandy's the reason the child got abducted. So in the film, it's she's the housekeeper. In the book, she's the bus driver. But in both, she knows. So do you see what I mean? Like, it felt like, okay, what are the chances that literally every single person in this truck stop, but I mean, Eddie's oblivious, but every single person in this truck stop is included in this whole convoluted idea. So then it goes through, Eddie ends up being killed, Sandy ends up being killed, Lars ends up dying by his brother's hand in the film, but by Darby's hand in the book. Then there's this, then you've got the cops come in. Now when the cops come in the film, they come in and then they come to the truck stop, and Ashley shoots the cop, and then Darby sort of like has like one bullet and manages to shoot Ashley, and it ends with sort of Ashley and the little girl. What is the little girl's name? I can't remember. Anyway, so it ends with Ashley. It ends with Darby and the little girl sort of being able to escape, calling in an ambulance, and the film ends with Darby going through rehab. And it's got like this setup, you know, the setup when they go and you see a gravestone and it just gives you the surname and the date of the death, and you go, oh no, was it her? You know it's not her. And it turns out that she'd gone through rehab, and the parents of the little girl basically paid for her to go through rehab and are now supporting her. In the book, after you've had all this back and forth and everybody being killed, and then you've got the showdown between Ashley, Darby and the girl, you get a false start with the cop. So the cop comes, and then it turns out that Darby had sent the wrong address to the cop. All the while they've got no signal as well, and then they get a brief bit of signal, and that's why the cop gets the message. So the cop goes to the wrong place, and then a snowplow comes up, and then the cop comes up, and the cop still gets killed by Ashley. The cop still gets killed by Ashley, but shoots Darby because he thinks Darby's going to kill Ashley. I mean, he's not wrong, but he reads the situation wrong. So then Darby's kind of dying. Ashley shoots the snowplow driver, and then the little girl kills Ashley. And that's the book. And obviously everybody survives and everything like that. And you get that sort of false ending. Oh, has she died? Has she not? And it's just a bit of a strange one. Like, it's just, I don't know. It felt very full on for a very long period of time. And the fact that everyone was involved in this kidnapping, and just and they all ended up at this truck stop with like the snow going in, and like you had the suspense building up. I don't know, like it just didn't, with all the twists as well, when you were like, okay, so she's confided in Ashley, great, and then Ashley turns around and is part of the thing, and you're like, right, okay, so there's two of them, perfect. And then she tries to get help from Eddie and Sandy, and then it turns out that Sandy's included as well, and you're like, for the love of God. And you just sat there going, but why is it needed? And the fact that everybody basically dies at the end, you sort of, I get a little bit annoyed sometimes when it's like, oh, let's just kill every single character apart from the main one. I don't know. It was good. It wasn't great. It had suspense in it, but I felt like there could be a little bit more of a build up. I mean, the plot, the fact that Darby isn't an addict, the way that everyone dies is slightly different. As I said, everyone does die, but the way they die is slightly different. The occupation of Sandy and the relationship between Sandy and Eddie, they took the main plot and the main plot points from the book, but it gets a 5 out of 10 from me for the plot, because I felt like they took the main points, but they changed such key points for no reason. Like, why did you change Sandy and Eddie from cousins to a couple? Why did you change Darby from a uni student to a drug addict? It just makes no sense. Why did you get rid of the snowplow driver completely? Like, get rid of him completely. It just, parts of it, I just don't understand why those changes were made. There was no need for those changes to be made. So it gets 5 out of 10 from me. Remember to subscribe to the channel. If you are enjoying these videos, please let me know below in the comments. Thank you very much for all your continued support. If you agree or disagree with anything that I say, please, again, leave it below in the comments. But thank you so much for your continued support. I know I've already said that. Goodness, repeating myself. But have a lovely day, and remember to always keep it contento.